Good evening. Welcome to Worth the Price of Admission. I'm Jill Martin. Throughout my career as a Live Nation concert photographer and the experiences I've shared alongside my late husband, baseball's very own Billy Martin, I've been fortunate to have met the most interesting people in the world. I've always been fascinated by the stories of others and the paths that they have taken to get where they are today. Inspired and motivated by my current husband, Paul, I'm here to take you behind the scenes to the heart of what truly makes each tale worth the price of admission. So sit back, get ready for an intimate look into the lives of the successful, the celebrated, and those who have helped shape the world in unimaginable ways. Good evening. I'm Jill Martin, and this is Worth the Price of Admission. We are filming tonight in the magnificent Hard Rock Live here in Hollywood, Florida. What an outrageous venue. I have the incredible honor to speak to Robbie Robinson, one of the great music conductors of our time. He is here to talk about how he started, his passion for music, and what he does today, and landing his dream job working for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons since 1978. He is considered the fifth season, kind of an honorary Jersey boy. Robbie is Frankie's musical director, his conductor, and keyboardist. They are all performing here live tonight. How lucky am I?
Here we are. We are at the Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida. This place is one of the great venues in the country. Big venue, and we're going to rock the house tonight.
BBC Concert Orchestra, conducted by Robbie Robinson, it is an honor to say these words. Welcome to the stage, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons!
Now, Robbie, I've heard that you might be called fifth season and an honorary Jersey boy.
Well, I've been around with Frankie Valli longer than any other musician or singer or artist in the world, other than Bob Gaudio, who's been Frankie's partner since the beginning. But I've been around for 46 years, so I know where the bodies are buried.
You think, huh?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Bob in a little while because you have a great deal of respect for him.
Yes.
So let's talk about how we met.
I remember with Steve Vaccaro and on Reach Out,
Yes.
you were a guest on that show. And of course, I'm a big baseball fan. And I'm a big Dodger fan.
We won't hold that against him.
I'm a big Dodger fan, and your husband broke my heart so many times, Billy Martin. But I do love baseball, and I love the Yankees second, but the Dodgers have always been my team. And so it was an honor to get, I have such respect for the game of baseball and so much great respect for your husband, Billy. And, he was such a fantastic manager, fantastic baseball player as well. And, so I have respect for the game. And so it was an honor to meet you.
Well, thank you. And he sure gave them a run for their money. But I do have to ask you, when we met, I do remember us, going back and forth a little bit about being, that Dodger Blue and the Yankee organization. And I think we laughed a little too hard. And that's why the network called and said, hey, what are you guys doing? You want your own show?
Wow.
But I do recall us talking about how I told you at the end of the day to get on to other subjects. I said, just remember, Robbie, when he goes to the pearly gates, that, the good Lord, he's wearing pinstripes.
I don't know. Tommy Lasorda used to tell me that the big Dodger in the sky. So I don't know,
Okay, so then, but help me out here. Even though we went back and forth, where do you place Don Mattingly in all of this? I mean, come on, right? Okay.
Well, he was a Dodger after he was a Yankee.
That's correct. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, he was a Dodger manager. Actually, you know what? I was so excited when Don became, first of all, Mr. Donnie Baseball, what a great, and he followed Joe Torre too.
Yes, he did.
To the Dodgers.
Yes, he did.
And I was so excited. And yet those years were such a letdown when he was there. We had great teams, just couldn't get to the final.
Well, everybody tried. And, when Billy brought him on to first base, he almost lost his job over that. And look what happened. Yes, he certainly did. That was going to be one of those other firings.
well, Billy should be in the Hall of Fame. Donnie should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, absolutely. So. I truly believe that. And maybe someday the fans will help us vote them in.
Amen,
yes.
sister.
There we go. So let's talk a little bit about where you came from.
I'm from a small town in southern Illinois, Litchfield, Illinois, population 6,000. I used to say 7,000 because it was 7,000 when I grew up, but now it's 6,000. And it's halfway between St. Louis and Springfield, about an hour north of St. Louis, about an hour south of Springfield, Illinois. So it's kind of really in the boondocks, so to speak. But it's my beloved hometown. I still go back there regularly, and I have friends and family there. My wife is from there. My wife, Carla, is from there. And it was a great place to grow up. It was really small town America there, and where everybody knew everybody. As a matter of fact, the reason I'm a Dodger fan, because where I grew up is from the near St. Louis. So
see how we all come back to this?
It all comes back to the Dodgers. And I was on the Little League Dodgers for 7 years. And Koufax and Maury Wills and Don Drysdale and all those great baseball players back in those days became my heroes. And there was another kid on the Little League Dodgers with me, and his name was Bob Plummer. And this guy, we're a poor little farming community, and he was very poor. He and his family, they had an outhouse until he graduated from college. So poor. And then, but he and I have maintained our Dodger fandom our whole lives. Again, everybody was Stan Musial, St. Louis Cardinals, Bob Gibson, all those.
He was a funny guy now.
Yeah.
Yes, he was a funny guy.
And Kurt Flood used to come over my house, actually, back in those days. And Joe Torre was back in those days as a Cardinal. But Bob Plummer and I grew up as these Dodger fans out here in the midst of Cardinal country. Bob Plummer goes on to be very successful in the lumber business, maintaining his Dodger fandom to the point where about 7 years ago, he became one of the owners of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Really?
So It is the story of the American dream. And my buddy, who I grew up, and one of my dear, dear friends, and we talked baseball all the time still, is now one of the owners of the Dodgers. So when I go to the Dodger games, it's really really cool because I get to go sit in the owner's box with
There we
Bob.
go, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you grew up in this small town, I read a lot about you, Robbie, and did some research, and I understand that you you grew up there. That's where the music started. But when you got into the band, you guys were promoting and singing surfing music. What did you guys do? Surf in Lake Michigan? I mean, what the heck, right?
Kind of like the Beach Boys. They never surfed
I know,
either.
exactly, right? What are you doing here, right?
Yeah, well, surf music, there was a craze of that time, and it was instrumental kind of music, like the Ventures and the Surfaris and the song Wipeout and those kind of songs. And so it was a style of music that was really fashionable at the time, way before your time, Jill.
Oh, God bless you.
And so I started playing this instrumental surf music, and then I kind of graduated to do other pop music, and I just love music, and I've mentioned this before, but Duke Ellington is a big hero of mine. And Duke Ellington says it this way. He says, there's two kinds of music. There's good music, and then there's the other kind. Whether it's country, whether it's polkas, whether it's jazz, it's rock, pop, blues, whatever are classical, it could be good music or it could be not so good. And so any style, and I love all styles of music. I love Mozart, Tchaikovsky, Beethoven. I love Bach, Bo Diddley, I love the Beatles, and of course, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
And somehow you kind of bring in that melody because those who you just mentioned, you could really make melodies out of music. I mean, everyone has their style of music, like you said, but the ones you just mentioned, they're just amazing. Billy Joel's another one.
That's right.
That you just, it's magnificent.
Melody is something that transcends all musical styles. And Tchaikovsky had it, especially Tchaikovsky and Mozart. And we listen to Mozart music. Here we are 250 years later, and it still touches hearts and lives. And Billy Joel's music, as you mentioned, Frankie Valli's music.
Amazing. Yes. Everybody. And the other thing about his music, I mean, we're going to bounce around here a little bit, but I love music, and I was a music photographer for a very long time and wish I could still do it. But it hits the generations, and it's still, every generation comes to the show. It was 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Here we go. Right. And
music is such a powerful gift from God. Martin Luther, I'm a big advocate of follower of Martin Luther. I respect Martin Luther. Let me put it that way. And he said that music next to theology is the greatest gift that God has given his people. And there is power in music that I've been doing music 24/7 for a lifetime, and I can't define what it does. But it definitely touches people, moves people, and it connects everybody. So.
Well, it's interesting you should say that because I know that you're traveling and you guys don't even seem to take breaks in between your shows. You go from one, you get up, you do whatever. So it's the passion. It's what you do. You get up like, let's go to the studio. Let's go to the concert. Instead of, and that's what drives you, obviously. And that's why we still listen. And you are so much a part of that, Robbie. I mean, look what you've done and conducted and helped out and millions of people, which we're going to get into. But anyways, you started when you were playing, you started music when you were
when I was
7.
Six. Well, actually, I started when I was 6, and my mom was a piano teacher. My beloved mother, who, without my mom, I would not be sitting here with you today because she is in more ways than one, of course. But she was the person really responsible for giving me music in my life. And so she was a piano teacher. She started giving me piano lessons when I was 6. And then she realized after a year of that she was going to get me a really good piano teacher. And then she sacrificed for many, many years. She couldn't afford this teacher, but she drove me to another town that was about 10 miles away once a week. And I took these lessons from Helen Neiman in Mount Olive, Illinois.
What kind of car did you drive over there?
Oh, gosh. It wasn't a fancy car. It was not a Rolls Royce, and it was not a limousine. I can tell you that. It was some station wagon because we had 7 kids in the family.
I had 8. Oh, my gosh.
Wow, so you can relate to that.
Yes.
And we didn't have seat belts, and all the kids sat in the back seat, on the back of the station wagon. And so for 7 years, I took classical piano lessons, and I really loved that. And when I was 14, I started playing in rock and roll bands. And that's when I decided I did not want to play classical music. By the way, when I was 8 years old, I started playing the saxophone and started playing in the school band, and I would play for the choir playing piano, and I would play at the Rotary Club for different things. And so I was already doing a lot of things. So when I was 14, I started playing in rock and roll bands, and I'm still playing in rock and roll bands all these years later.
And that's your favorite?
I say rock and roll. I love all kinds of music. I love classical music. I love orchestras. One of the things that I want to do, if there ever is a post Frankie Valli era for me, is I want to go out and conduct orchestras doing the music of Frankie Valli.
I have to say it's just got to be such a magnificent feeling to stand up there and command an orchestra. And you've done it in many parts of the world.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite venue that you?
Oh, well, a number. Probably one of the greatest highlights of my career was, I've had a number of, but we played in London with I've conducted the London Symphony and the BBC Orchestra at Royal Albert Hall. And that's...
Where do you go from there?
I know.
Come on.
Well, I can tell you, one of the things we did the London... No, let me back up. I did the London Symphony and the Royal Philharmonic at Royal Albert Hall. And I conducted the BBC Orchestra at this thing, Proms in the Park at Hyde Park for 400,000 people in the audience and broadcast over all of UK. And that was pretty heavy.
This has got to be like the greatest high ever that you've ever had.
Yeah,
Right?
it was really cool. But then again, before I was with Frankie, so we're going back, I've been with Frankie Valli now for 46 years. Before I was with Frankie, I was conducting for a guy named Buddy Greco, and we did a whole week with the Count Basie Orchestra. And I was Buddy Greco's conductor, and I'm this punk kid, really, young guy. And here I'm conducting that whole week, the Count Basie Orchestra with Buddy, because they were our orchestra for the week. And so that was a real highlight.
Oh, really high.
And rubbing shoulders with Count Basie and people like that. And then through the years, I've had the chance to rub shoulders with really some tremendous music artists.
Yes.
And that's a highlight.
All right. But you also, so just backtracking a little bit, I want to honor your mom because I know that she just passed and I know how close you were to her. And I remember seeing everything that was posted and the love in your heart, how you described her and your times with her. So God bless her. And I'm glad that she shared you with us because otherwise, look, where would we be right now? Right.
My mom, without my mom, again, she's the one who really fostered the music. And she was so supportive. Even back in those days when my first rock and roll bands, she would make our outfits, and we were very entrepreneurial. We would book a hall. We would go to this little town. We would book a hall and having a teen dance and she would take tickets at the door and stuff. I mean, she was so supportive. She drove me to piano lessons once a week. And till the end, she was very supportive, and she would come out and travel all over the world, literally, to hear us perform.
And what about Dad?
My dad was also very supportive. He died relatively young. He was 53 when he died.
Oh, gosh.
But he loved music, and he loved the blues, and he'd come in and play me some blues, and I'd play the blues. And he was a big baseball guy too, and we would go to the Cardinals game, and he knew all the Cardinals. He was in business with
So
Kurt
were you
Flood.
a Roger Maris fan?
Well, I am a Roger Maris fan.
Great
no
guy.
question.
He was my favorite.
Yeah.
Other than Billy.
Another
he was my favorite.
another guy who should be in the Hall of Fame too.
Another guy that should be here in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And you also have an incredible love of the Hammond organ.
Yes, I do.
And so talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So Hammond organ is like it's like the Harley Davidson of musical instruments. It's Americana. It's classic. If you see a Harley Davidson, it's a Harley Davidson. If you see a Hammond organ, if you hear a Hammond organ, it's a Hammond organ. And I started out playing, this Farfisa organ. In the early days, they were these combo organs, and groups like, Sam the Sham and the Fair, and Question Mark and the Mysterians had 96 Tears, and they had those kind of things.
Oh,
So
I
I played
remember all
those.
of that. Yeah.
And Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was playing that kind of organ, and then I heard a Vox Continental organ. I sold my Farfisa organ and bought a Vox Continental, and that was another one of those early combo organs. And then I heard a Hammond organ, and I bought that Hammond organ, and I still have that same Hammond organ. In 1968, I bought a used Hammond organ, and that is still a great instrument, and I use it still. It's set up at my church, and I play that every Sunday at church.
But you have at least a dozen of these. I understand. I mean, rumor has it it's like you're the collector. I mean,
I get to represent Hammond organ in many respects. We just had the National Association of Music Merchandisers
and you're part of the artist family, the family artist.
The family of artists at Hammond organ, and I own 15 Hammond organs now.
Oh my gosh! Okay, so when I read it, it was 12.
Yeah, you know, they just grow. They have that thing.
And rumor has it that your wife says she's going to bury you on it.
Yeah, I hope hopefully not too soon.
Right, hopefully not too soon.
Yeah.
And so there was a couple of gentlemen that influenced you with the Hammond.
There were three primary Hammond organ influences for me. Jimmy Smith is the godfather of the Hammond organ. He's the one who really put Hammond organ on the map. He was a jazz artist that came up in the 50s. And anybody who plays any professional Hammond organist learned from him in some way, shape, or form. Next was Felix Cavalieri.
Yes.
Felix Cavalieri had a band called the Rascals.
Rascals, yes, the Rascals.
And he really put it on the map for rock music. And he has become it's crazy when your heroes become your friends, and he's become a dear friend of mine and which is really a blessing. And then the third is a guy named Mark Stein who played in a band called Vanilla Fudge. And I just happen to have
I love that.
my Vanilla Fudge shirt on because I love this band so much. They were really an inspirational band to me. Mark has become a dear friend of mine as well. And one of the blessings for me was last year, I got to sit in with Vanilla Fudge. I went to a concert of theirs. They invited me to come up on the stage and sit in with them, which was really a thrill for me. I mean, again, this is the band I worshiped when I was a kid, and then to sit in with them. And they told me at the time, there's only two musicians that ever sat in with them, Joe Bonamassa and me. So I feel like I'm in pretty elite.
Feel like you have arrived.
Yeah.
And so the name of your band when you were in Illinois, the Rebels.
Yeah, we started out as Rebels, and we were rebellious, I guess. And then, of course, those band changed. I had a band then that band evolved into the Far Cries, and then it became a band called Pat, and then we had Patch and Dee Dee, and then we headed west, basically.
And so I was going to ask you about that. I growing up being a California girl, what was LA like back there in the music industry?
I went out there in 1976. Now, we started traveling around the country in the early 70s and played, and lived and traveled East Coast, Florida, just all over, playing these. In those days, there were a lot of those venues where you would play a week at a time, clubs and showrooms and stuff like that. And these bands that I would have, and our repertoire in those days was very diverse. We would do Beethoven, do a Miles Davis song, do a Frank Zappa song, and then do a Supreme song. I mean, it was very eclectic.
The best, right? Come on. Yeah.
But in a lot of those places, the audiences didn't get it, interestingly enough. So we moved in, my brother and I had a manager at the time. He said, if you're going to do anything in the music business, you got to get to California. So he's really the guy who lit the fire under me to move to California in 76. And my brother, who has been working, my brother Rex, who plays bass and has been playing with me all my life. We went out there and I saw this jazz fusion drummer his card at the Guitar Center. And I called him up, and he was very respected in the music industry. He was the founding drummer for a band called Weather Report, which was very popular in those days in the jazz fusion scene. And his name was Alphonse Mouzon. And it's one of those pivotal moments, in your life when it really changed the trajectory for us. I called him, and something I said perked his interest, and he came over I says, I want to come and jam with you guys. And so he came over to our little apartment in Hollywood. We had all our equipment, my Hammond organ and all this stuff set up in this little apartment in Hollywood. And we jammed. He says, I want you guys to be in my band. And so a month later, we did our first live album, Blue Note, live at the Roxy Theater there in Los Angeles, and with big stars, jazz stars of the day, Carmen McRae and a bunch of these other artists. And that really opened the door for us in Los Angeles. Because we were playing with a world-famous drummer and a world-famous, very highly respected musician of the highest order, that gave us instant credibility, because credibility is so important in any
absolutely, huh?
Anyway, and so that opened the doors, and it just opened the doors to Liza Minnelli, to Tom Jones, to Eddie Harris, to all these different people,
That just had to be just like, ice cream on the cake, right?
It was really cool. It happened almost overnight, because we were only in town for a month. And we came out there with nothing and no contacts or anything. And
then shortly after, somebody called you. Who was it that called you to say, hey, Frankie Valli needs somebody?
Well, so I moved out in 76. We were working around town, playing all kinds of things. And my goal really was, though, to pursue the Robinson Brothers band and to do my music, because that's really what I want to do when I grow up.
Robbie's Records.
Hey, that's it. And a really dear friend of mine who I had worked with in Illinois, his name is Richie Gahate Garcia. And my brother and I, Rex and I, and Richie were playing in these little clubs in Illinois. Springfield, Illinois. Richie likes to tell the story.
Surfing on the side.
Yeah, surfing on the side. But these were cowboy bars almost, and they would come in with their horses, on their horses. So we would lift the Hammond organ, the 400-pound Hammond organ, over the bar like this to get up on the stage. But Richie Gahate, then he went up to Chicago when we went out to the West Coast, and he had gotten a job with Frankie Valli. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Richie has now gone on to become he's still one of my dearest friends. Mm-hmm. He's played with people like Sting, people like Stevie Wonder, people like Diana Ross, people like Phil Collins, and on and on. He's become one of the greatest names in the music business, in the percussion field. So he got me the job, basically. He said, he was working with Frankie. Frankie was looking for a guy. He says, I got the guy for you. And so,
I know a guy that knows a guy.
Yeah, that's how it works,
I know, right?
Who in this business. And I tell a lot of young people in the music business, and it probably translates to a lot of different fields of endeavor. It's so much the relationships that you foster, even when you're coming up, go on and on. And I still know a lot of musicians from those days. Michael McDonald was a local musician back in those days too,
So you get this phone call, and off you go.
Off I go.
And you meet this Energizer Bunny.
Unbelievable.
I mean, this guy has more energy and tenacity and drive. It's wonderful. It just gives us hope.
Frankie Valli is a force of nature. And interestingly enough, I had two offers when I had, at that time. Well, I was the conductor for Buddy Greco. We were traveling all over the world, playing these big showrooms and stuff. And I remember that was with Buddy Greco was my first experience in Las Vegas. And we used to open the show for Don Rickles at the Sahara. We would go there for weeks at a time. Oh,
he was a great guy.
Great guy. Mm-hmm. And a big Dodger fan, too.
Yes, okay. Yeah, that's true.
Got to keep that in.
So you moved to Los Angeles, but you live in Nashville.
Well, I
How
have.
does that work?
No, I live
Oh,
in
yeah.
Los Angeles.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I live in Los Angeles, but I have a house in Nashville, so I'm
Okay.
bi-coastal, if you
All right.
will.
And where's family?
My wife and I live in Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
We have a house in Nashville.
Uh-huh.
I have 2 children, and I have 9 grandkids,
Oh, my
all
gosh.
in Nashville. And so,
So how do you juggle all that? You got your
well,
personal life, you
it's
got your career.
mostly we're in Los Angeles, but we go back and forth whenever I get a chance. Especially, for example, not this week, but if I'm on the East Coast, I could pop into Nashville for a day or 2.
Absolutely.
Nashville's a great town, and it's really booming out there now too.
And you love Los Angeles. I grew up in California, so
Yeah.
I've got a little soft spot there.
Yeah, and the weather. The weather's the best.
Weather. Come on. And how about September when everybody goes back to school and it's just the best? You have the
Yeah.
whole coast to yourself.
Yes.
So, you've worked at such a diverse musical experience. It's kind of like a dream come true. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's rock and roll, the jazz, or the blues. And obviously you're with Frankie, but is this your favorite type of music?
Well, I like a lot of different
Uh-huh.
kinds. I wouldn't say, because I don't know if I even have a favorite.
You like it all.
I like it all, and depending at the time, and I like to give it 100% every note that I play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of, I think, the secret. And talking about the Energizer Buddy, this guy, and you mentioned his tenacity. And here, I'll tell you this story. I had 2 offers at the time, back to when I was going to first join Frankie. The other guy's name was Morris Albert. Now, I don't know if that name rings a bell to you. At the time, in 1978, he had the biggest song in the world called Feelings.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, of course.
And he was a brand new artist, and that was his first hit. And he was the biggest artist. He was the biggest song in the world.
We all remember that. And
so I had an opportunity to go with him or Frankie, who at the time was kind of an oldies artist. But I chose Frankie, and that was, of course, Morris Albert never had another hit either. So here I am 46 years later.
And what I find amazing about how, somebody who's been in the business so long and has certainly seen ups and downs all around. And then someone like Frankie, he's actually kind of kept the band intact, but still gone and helped other artists from, Frank Sinatra, amazing people to help produce. But yet that was always, I'm not going to say under the radar, but it wasn't something that we, the public, were really aware of, right? But here you go back and you look, I mean, it's right there.
Frankie Valli was a major force in music, but it was kept under this little cup, this bushel, so to speak. Then when Jersey Boys came out, almost it kind of lifted the veil.
Sure.
And now look at Frankie Valli, and now and when we go to the concerts, and you'll see tonight at the show, there's going to be teenagers to 80-somethings, everybody singing along those songs.
And they're still on the radio. That's what's really amazing.
And last but certainly not least, our musical director and arranger. And you all know how important it is to have a musical director and arranger, right? Well, we've been looking for one now for 3 years. No, but seriously, this guy and I have been working together an awfully long time. He's one of my closest friends and one of the most talented musical people I've ever worked with. Our musical director and arranger, Robbie Robinson.
And you have played on or produced hundreds of CDs, records, sold out concerts, TVs, movies, jingles, played for presidents. I mean,
it's been a pretty good run.
And of course, my favorite, the symphonies, which we've talked a little bit about. You had mentioned that you thought London was pretty much stands out in your
highlight,
mind. I would think so.
The London Symphony at Royal Albert Hall doesn't get much better than that.
And a favorite instrument? Okay, we've talked about the organ, but is that your favorite, or is
if I could only do one thing in music, it would be probably to play Hammond organ. There's something when I sit down, and it's different than playing a piano or a keyboard or synthesizer or whatever. And I love all that stuff. And I love to conduct, and I love to write, I love to arrange, I love to work in the studio. But sitting down playing the Hammond organ, there's a connection, a physical and emotional connection that happens when you play the Hammond organ that is unlike any other musical experience that I have. And so that's really a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
So one of the thrills of my life was getting a chance to play the mighty Hammond organ at Yankee Stadium. And in that respect, the Yankees are better than the Dodgers because the Yankees have a Hammond organ. I've played the organ at Dodger Stadium, but that's not a Hammond. So in that respect, although I love the Dodgers, I do bleed Dodger blue.
So Grease, what an amazing production song. And there's a bit of a story behind that, isn't it?
Well, 1978, Grease came out, and of course, one of the biggest movies ever. And they asked Frankie Valli to sing, Barry Gibb asked Frankie Valli to sing the theme song. As a matter of fact, as the story goes, they gave him the option of singing Grease, the theme song, or to be in the movie and sing Beauty School Dropout. And he chose to do Grease, which I think was a good choice.
I think that's a good choice too.
Yeah.
Huh?
And I've heard, and Barry Gibb had the greatest respect because Frankie has said maybe many times, if Barry had realized what a big hit it was, he would have sung it. But I've seen so many interviews of Barry Gibb talking about how much respect he had for Frankie Valli and considers him the greatest pop singer of all time.
That's awesome.
So, and that's why he chose Frankie.
How humble of that too, because he truly, yes.
Oh,
I love both singers, but
Yeah.
I think Frankie did it a little better justice.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And I've heard the tape, the demo, the cassette that Barry sent to Frankie. It's just Barry playing guitar, playing Grease is the word, is the, and it's pretty cool.
There we go. We talked about Frankie doing a little bit of stuff on his own, Frank Sinatra, Neil Diamond, and what an amazing ride. I mean, for that man, for you, for all the people in the band, and everyone's been with the band for a very long time.
Well, the majority of the band, actually, we have changed the number of musicians. Bob Gaudio and Frankie have been partners since the beginning.
What an amazing man. We need to talk about him
Super
too.
talented guy. And then I've been here for 46 years, but besides us, it's actually hasn't been, there's nobody else that's been there for a long period of time.
That says a lot. And
my brother was the bass player and bass singer for over 20 years.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And what is your brother doing today?
He's kind of retired from the music business. He still plays here and there. He plays at church and stuff, and he and I still do, we have a Robinson Brothers, project out there, and we still play every now and then. We've gone back 3 times to our beloved hometown of Litchfield, Illinois, and we've done fundraisers, concerts there, and for the hospital. Which is
anybody else in the family that is into music?
Everybody. We 7 kids we mentioned earlier, and all 7 kids played music. But my brother and I are the only ones that went into it professionally.
And so, you tell us about Robbie's records.
Okay, so during the pandemic, that changed so many of our lives in so many ways. And I had been a road musician all my life. Once that hit, and it was almost overnight that our concerts got canceled. As a matter of fact, it literally was overnight. It was a Thursday night. We were supposed to do a show at Thousand Oaks the next day. And they said, well, there's this disease and it's blah, blah. And so we're going to have to cancel the show. I thought, what the heck is that all about? And 2 years later, of no travel.
Why, right?
So that was a very transformational time for me, where I had a chance to spend 24/7, instead of touring around the world making music, living in the studio. And that's when I had one of the aha moments that I have been pursuing and writing and creating music for decades that had been sitting on my shelf, but I had never had a chance to really promote it or do anything because I'd been busy doing Frankie Valli music or other people's music. And so I thought, this is an opportunity for me to really create my own artist identity. And that's what I did with Robbie's Records. And I started that during the pandemic. And it's really been a lot of fun, and it's been very inspirational. And I really love to get in there and create. And Robbie's Records basically we really started promoting things just a little over a year ago. And we're over 4 million views now on YouTube already. So that's been pretty cool to see that really mushroom.
And so Sarah works for you. Talk about Sarah. She's an amazing talent.
Yeah, Sarah Nimitz is a young lady with extraordinary talent. I've known her since she was a teenager. And we did a lot of church things together back in the days. And then I have this concert we may talk about called Jam for Jesus. She'd been doing that. But then during the pandemic, we collaborated on a song. And when I say collaborate, in those days, we were collaborating virtually, where she would be home in her studio and I was home in my studio. We would send tracks back together and we would write songs. And she is an undiscovered superstar.
I believe that.
No question about it.
She grabs you. Even you don't know her. You listen to her. Once again, when I first became part of the network, I would watch the shows that you would be on weekly, and she was always a part of it, and just always, lit up everything. And a beautiful voice, and the theatrics, everything was great.
Yeah, and she writes, she produces, she does her own studio. I mean, she's got her studio set up, so it's not like she has to come into my studio or go into a studio with an engineer. She does it all herself. So she's amazingly talented in a variety of ways, creates extraordinary videos. She's got a Spielbergian.
Yes, she does.
That's a word.
I know what you mean.
For these videos. And so the two of us have found that we can two people in the period of 2, 3, 4 days, we can write a song, record a song, master a song, and have a video all done just in a few days. It's amazing. No other musicians, no other engineers, nobody else,
That's amazing. And so she lives in Los Angeles
as well? She lives in Los Angeles. And she's touring right now, she's actually on tour with Postmodern Jukebox. She tours with them periodically, and she does some of her, and a lot of her own things, and done her own projects.
What you doing down there? Dancing alone every night. Well, I live right above you. I can hear your music playing. I can feel your body swaying. One floor below me, you don't even know me. I love you. Oh, my darling, knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want. Twice on the pipe, if the answer is no.
We did a little tour last year. It was Sarah Nimitz, Robbie Robinson, Get Your Kicks Tour 23. And that was really exciting. And it was really successful. And I'd like to do more of those kind of tours. Sure. And that's fun. Instead of going out as Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, doing our own stuff. And the guitar player on that tour was this guy from my favorite band.
Vanilla Fudge.
Because we needed a guitar player. I thought, I wonder if my hero, Vinnie Martell from Vanilla Fudge, would come out. And let's do it.
And where do you live in Los Angeles?
I live in Simi Valley, California.
Okay, all right,
and I've been in the same house there since 1979.
Really?
And I have a fantastic little studio that's all set up, and I can live in there,
And so how long from Simi Valley to Los Angeles does it take you?
Depending on traffic in Los Angeles.
I know.
So if I can get to Dodger Stadium in 40 minutes.
Okay.
Without traffic, or an hour and 40 minutes.
There you go. Depending upon what's going on, huh? So, you talked a little bit about the Jam for Jesus. You're a devout Christian. Talk about that.
Yeah.
Were you always this way, or?
No. No, decades ago, I had an aha moment and really became a committed Christian. And when I did that, I knew that God had given me the gift of music. And so I felt like, I think any Christian should use their gifts to serve the Lord. One of my big heroes is Johann Sebastian Bach, who was a Lutheran musician, as am I. And as a matter of fact, one of his sayings he had on most of his manuscripts was Soli Deo Gloria. To God be the glory in everything that you do. And I try to do that in everything I do, so much so, as a matter of fact, I wear this little thing. You can see it right there. It says Soli Deo Gloria.
Yes.
And
what was the Yaha moment, if you don't mind my asking? When you said, okay, I'm doing this.
Well,
we can cut it out.
I don't want to get too in the weeds with this. I can tell you the story, and maybe I can give you a capsule version of it. Well, basically, I had this aha moment. I was one of those Christians who I went to church on Christmas and Easter religiously. Other than that was it. But music was really my God. That was a thing that I worshiped and lived and breathed. And so my daughter kind of got off into some other things in life. And, my daughter got into Mormonism, and I don't want to get too much into
That's
this.
okay. Yeah.
But my daughter got off into other things. And so I really started reading the Bible. And the more I read the Bible, the more I said, wow, this all makes sense to me. And so, and then there was a pool guy. I had it in my swimming pool, and I was sitting in my office, and I had this sliding glass door out to the swimming pool right there. And this guy comes up, this little Hispanic guy comes up and knocks on the door. And in broken English, he said, I felt God coming to ask me, I felt God that wanted me to ask you a question. I said, okay, what do you want to ask me? He says, are you a Christian? And I said, well, I think I am. And I had been like consumed by the Bible for months prior to that. He says, well, if you think you are, then you probably are not. So he says, you know that if you know. And so I said a little prayer with him, and that was like the aha moment. And ever since then, I have not looked back and have been very faithful in serving the Lord. And so, Jam for Jesus.
Yes, Jam for Jesus.
So 32 years ago, I thought I should start using the gifts that I have, because I've always put on concerts and I've been able to be a music director and all that. And so I said, I'll call a bunch of my buddies and we'll have a Christmas concert. And we did that 32 years ago, and I've been doing it for 32 years now. And now the band is like this all-star of LA's finest. We have 10-piece horn section. We have 6 other musicians. We have a bunch of other great singers and performers and artists. And it's really, really kind of a cool thing. And everybody comes and gives of their time and talent. It's like a Radio City music production, but nobody gets paid. Everybody comes and just does it.
And you do that in one specific place?
Yeah, we do it at my local church there in Simi Valley. And it's been 32 years, and it's great. I mean, and it's so much fun. And I have people from Phil Collins' band, from Earth, Wind and Fire, from Tower of Power, from Stevie Wonder's band. All these great musicians come and sing and play, and it's really a lot of fun.
You did one particular thing. I'm going to go back to Sarah a minute that I really was taken by, is the peppermint twit.
Yeah.
And that has a story behind it.
Joey D and the Starlighters, 1962, had a massive hit, the Peppermint Twist.
Great song.
Oh, yeah. And in 1962, before your time, and really kind of before my time.
Thank you for that. No.
Yeah. But the Peppermint Lounge in New York City and Hell's Kitchen in New York City was like the hub of the entertainment universe, because every big star would go to this Peppermint Lounge in New York City to do the Peppermint Twist. Everybody from the Beatles to John Wayne to Jacqueline Kennedy, the biggest stars in the world would go there, and Joey D taught the world how to peppermint twist. And so Joey D has become a dear, dear friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, Joey D, if I could set a quick aside with Joey D, this guy had the original school of rock, because Joey D's band, he had some of the musicians, 3 of the Rascals were in his band before they became the Rascals. Felix Cavalieri, Gene Cornish, Eddie Brigatti were all in his band. David Brigatti, who sang with the Rascals, was also in his band for decades. Jimi Hendrix was in his band.
Isn't that amazing?
How crazy is that?
That is crazy, huh?
Now, and he played guitar, and you know who else played a guitar in Joey D's band? You would never guess this. Joe Pesci.
Really? Oh my gosh.
What band can claim they had Jimi Hendrix and Joe Pesci in that band? Only one.
No, yeah,
Joey
right,
D and the Starlighters. So that was a great song by my dear, dear friend, Joey D. And I thought, hey, we should do a cover of it.
Sarah just did an amazing job with that. I mean,
and we got a great endorsement by Joey. Joey has done a bunch of great things for it. So that's a fun record, you know.
And so you're going to have another concert here. I know we're going to have a concert tonight, but also at Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah, we're March 22nd,
huh?
Radio City.
That should just, and how many times have you been able to?
Many
oh my
times.
gosh.
I can't count, but that's a great venue.
That's a great venue. How exciting, huh?
I haven't made it to Carnegie Hall. That's on my bucket list.
Okay. All right. So do we have plans for that?
I'd love to be there. I don't think Frankie will ever perform there because it's just not the right kind of venue, but maybe I could do my own thing there. Maybe a more intimate kind of a.
There you go. Bring back the peppermint twist again,
there
right?
There you
go. All right. So one funny question. Okay. So you weren't born Robbie.
No, my real name is Max Robinson. My dad's name was Max Robinson. I have a grandson named Max Robinson, which is interesting. But so when I was a little kid, they said, well, we're not going to call him Max, Big Max and Little Max. We'll call him Robbie, which is a common nickname for Robinson.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of the Dodger managers was named Uncle Robbie Robinson. You see, it all goes back to the Dodgers.
Okay, you know what? You don't have to rub it in. All right. So the show tonight, what's it going to be like? I'm so excited.
Well, it's going to be about 2 hours of this amazing artist, Frankie Valli, who's been one of the longest running artists of all time. And everybody's going to be up singing, dancing, knowing all the songs. It's a great band. It's a great venue. It's just going to be a lot of fun.
Not a bad seat in the house, from what I understand.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Absolutely. And so you have a great song, The Will to Win. And we're going to play it for everybody.
Well, you're talking about Robbie's records. And so one of the songs that we collaborated with Sarah Nimitz, the genius girl, I like to call her, is this song called The Will to Win. And the song is all about that drive, that passion, that love that we all have.
That you have.
Well, that we all have, well, no matter what, whether it's in baseball. Billy had it, didn't he? You saw it firsthand. And I think to be successful in any field of endeavor, you have to have that will to win, that drive to be successful. And that's what this song is all about. And the lyrics actually personify that will to win that we have in us. And it's really kind of creative in that respect. It's sort of jazz, sort of pop, sort of R&B. And I think it's really kind of a cool song. And it's on Robbie's records. And I think this is going to be kind of cool.
There we go. And we're going to show it to everyone.
Go to work before the sun is up, and don't return until the moon is in the sky. Every night, dreaming of the game. And when we're fighting just to stay alive, I know the spirit inside is gonna call my name, call my name.
So I want to ask you, how does everybody reach you?
I have a website called RobbieRobinsonmusic.com. Robbie is spelled R-O-B-B-Y, R-B-I-N-S-O-N. robbysmusic.com. And that everything funnels through that. So Robbie's Records is on that, everything. So if you go to robbyrobinsonmusic.com, it's easy to find me.
And you're going to find everything about you.
Everything
There we
that
go.
you ever, more than you'll ever want to know.
So do the grandkids get involved with any of the music?
Oh, yeah. We just
to me.
played Grand Ole Opry a couple weeks ago, and they all came out
Oh my
to
God,
Nashville,
that's
come
right.
out and hung out.
Yes, I have not been to Nashville, and I that sounds crazy, but I should. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
And so, talk to me about your podcast, the Jam and Java.
I have a show called Jam and Java every Monday night that started during the pandemic. Now, it started out as a jam session at my church. Jam and Java was a Monday night jam session, and I would have all these, again, great musicians from Los Angeles. We would come in and just jam. And then when the pandemic hit, that had to stop because we couldn't congregate the people.
Sure.
So that sort of transformed into a live podcast, video podcast, if you will, where I would play music, interview musicians, so that's been going on now for about 3 years, and it's really been a lot of fun. And still, I get a chance to play a lot of my music. I get a chance to interview a lot of heroes and friends of mine in the music business and in sports too, because I've had a bunch of Tommy John has been on there
Dear
a few
friend,
times.
love him. Yes.
And Daryl Strawberry's been on, and the video podcasts like your show is really have become cool because you develop this family of people who tune in every week, and it's almost like just a little party, a family get together. It
really is. And you know what? And I have to thank you, Robbie, because once again, had I not been invited on that show, I probably would not be sitting here tonight.
You never know.
You never know. And I'm so honored and so enamored in what you do and so excited to have come here. And I've been wanting to interview you now for about a year. And our schedules just didn't, gel so well. But I hope that you come on again. I enjoyed immensely talking to you, finally meeting you in person. Everything has been over the air.
Right.
And thank you for helping me have the time of my life.
I am truly honored to be your guest on this great show. And God, big blessings to you on this new adventure that you're on.
Thank you. And lots more to come. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for my home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Take me out to the ball game.
This has been Jill Martin, Worth the Price of Admission, and it certainly is all of that. And I can't wait for this show. I'm so excited.